Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I'm Barry P. Cook. I'm here to do a review of the recently released Netflix film, The School for Good and Evil. It's a fantasy film based on the first book of the series of novels of the same name by Salman Chenani. Before I do that, I want to let everyone know about my Teespring store. It's there that you will find t-shirts with the channel logo and other designs, and anything that you get there, of course, helps support the channel. The link is in the description. I also want to let everyone know that I'd really appreciate it if you give the video a like and subscribe to the channel and make a comment. I very much enjoy engaging with the folks who make comments. We have good conversations, so if you do that as well, that would be great. Okay, so the movie's on Netflix, as I said, and it stars Sophia Ann Caruso and Sophia Wiley, which is interesting because they spell their names differently, but they both have the same names, and one of the characters' names in the movie is Sophie. So anyway, it's kind of weird. Also, Lawrence Fishburne is in it, Michelle Yeoh, Kerry Washington, CHARLIZE THERON, and Cate Blanchett as a sort of narrator. As the film begins, it's ages ago, back when twin brothers Rian and Rafal first opened the School for Good and Evil. And it was meant to prepare its students to participate in soon-to-be popular fairy tales. On one occasion, however, during a supposed sparring match, a power-thirsty Rafal actually attacks Rian for real using blood magic, which is supposed to be forbidden. And he does this because he wants to dominate the school. During the tussle, they both fall over a cliff's edge, and we only see Rian climb back up and look down on the fallen Rafal. In the present, in the village of Gavaldon, princess-like Sophie and social outcast Agatha, whom share a strong friendship, visit DeVille's storybook shop in search of new fairy tales, and they discover a copy of Cinderella with the School for Good and Evil stamp, at which point the shopkeeper explains about the school and its purpose. While Agatha is skeptical, Sophie, wishing to abandon her dreary life in Gavaldon, is excited and writes a letter to the School for Good and Evil, unknowingly enrolling herself. After nightfall, during a blood moon, Sophie attempts to leave Gavaldon in secret as Agatha tries to stop her, and a misty, red-eyed creature drags Sophie away as Agatha gives chase. They eventually end up in a clearing where a giant skeletal bird, which I guess is called a stymph, snatches both of them and flies them off to the School for Good and Evil. However, despite expectations, Sophie is dropped at the School for Evil, while Agatha is dropped at the School for Good. While both are inducted by their schools sort of unwillingly, because they're convinced they were misplaced, Agatha wishes to return to Gavaldon, while Sophie just wants to be at the School for Good. And both are considered outcasts by the stereotypical Evers, which are students of good, and Nevers, the students of evil. At the welcoming ceremony, Agatha and Sophie come across Tedris, the most popular ever prince and son to King Arthur. That same night, while trying to sneak to the School for Evil, Agatha is chased by a Cupid come to life and forced to hide in the library, where she overhears the Dean of the Nevers, Leonora Lesso, and the Dean of the Evers, Clarissa Dovey, argue about both Sophie and Agatha's arrivals. As they leave, Rafal manifests on a blood vortex, warning Agatha to stay away from Sophie, as she has a destiny, according to him. Agatha reunites with Sophie, and they seek out Headmaster Rian and the magical Storian pen. Rian informs Sophie he'll only allow Sophie to switch schools if she can find her true love, as real Evers do, by a true love's kiss before sending both girls back to their schools. The next morning, Agatha and Sophie attempt to find Sophie's true love, though Sophie has already decided that her true love is Tedris. While attempting to attend classes, but failing at them, Agatha winds up getting a warning of terrible consequences should she fail at something 3 times. Meanwhile, Sophie falls into a rivalry with another student, Hester, whom attacks her with a tattoo-born demon, which flies right off her back, which is kind of crazy. At which point, Rafal intervenes as a swarm of wasps, and Lesso interprets this as Sophie's potential for winning a victory for evil, something thought impossible because it hasn't happened for 2 centuries. At the same time, at a magical wishing lake, when Agatha gets her turn to make a wish in the lake, she wishes for everyone at the School for Good and Evil to return home. And this releases a school of fish that's actually revealed to be a previously failed student from 100 years ago, whom is now free thanks to Agatha, though she does die. Just after that, a Stimph appears and charges towards Agatha, and she realizes it's Gregor, which is someone that she had met before who was struggling with the classes and who apparently failed 3 times. Before she can help him, however, Gregor's killed by Tedris' sword Excalibur, because Tedris is totally oblivious to what was happening. And after that, Agatha lashes out at him and at Dovey, and is even more adamant at this point that she doesn't belong there. However, Dovey insists that she does because her selflessness, her empathic personality, makes her the first true princess in centuries to be at the School for Good. That afternoon, when Sophie and Tedris finally meet, she's forcefully dragged to the Doom Room, where Lesso cuts her hair off to devastate her spirit, allowing Rafal to convince Sophie to push her limits if she wants to win Tedris' heart. The emboldened Sophie completely changes her whole everything, her demeanor, her appearance, her clothing, which gets her in good graces with the Nevers, including Hester and her friends Anadil and Dot, but at the same time sort of alienating herself from Agatha, though Agatha still tries to help Sophie using magic to bring her and Tedris together. However, in a roundabout way, this leads to conflict between the two schools and alarms both deans, to the point that Rian determines that a trial by tale with Sophie and Tedris is necessary. This is a trial where they both go into the woods at night from different ends and try to find each other, which is complicated because at night the woods become kind of not safe. During the trial, Sophie proves herself unable to defend herself and even unable to help Tedris defend himself, which prompted Agatha, who wasn't supposed to be there, to intervene and save him. After which Sophie is imprisoned for cheating as Tedris forfeits the trial and breaks up with her. Instigated by Rafal, Sophie is convinced that Agatha is her enemy, her nemesis in fact, and accepts his offer of blood magic powers, which she tries out on Lesso, Dovey, and the rest of the SGE staff by turning them into little dolls. Sophie then invades the Evers Ball, transform into a hag-like witch, threatening Agatha and goading Tedris to attack the School for Evil, despite the fact that Evers are supposed to only defend and never attack. And despite Agatha's warning about this, Agatha arrives at the School for Evil, where the first Never Ball ever is being hosted, to try to warn Sophie. But as Tedris arrives and tries killing Sophie, the breaking of the rules causes Nevers to become Evers and vice versa, and both sides engage in a vicious battle. During the battle, in which Tedris is incapacitated, Sophie heads to the headmaster's tower as a raven seeking revenge. There, as she confronts Rian, he reveals himself to have been Rafal all along, having survived the fall, and killed Rian after the point at which we saw Rian seemingly survive the fall, assuming his identity and manipulating Good's stories to favor evil and weaken good from within. And then he proposes a union between himself and Sophie to Sophie, such that they would rule together and forever. However, as they kiss, both schools and everyone within them are condemned to die, which horrifies Sophie before Agatha arrives to challenge Rafal. As Rafal tries killing Agatha with the Storian, Sophie takes the fatal hit, undoing Rafal's spell and saving both schools. As Tedris tries to attack Rafal, Agatha, with Sophie's aid, takes the Excalibur and slays Rafal. As Agatha holds Sophie in her arms, her last moments appear to be upon her, and she gives Sophie a goodbye kiss, which causes Sophie to return to life, as this was a kiss of true love. With the students having reconciled between both sides and the school staff restored, a portal to Gavaldon opens, through which Sophie and Agatha cross, returning to their old lives. But just after that, an arrow from Tedros pierces the veil between both worlds, as does a knife, as the Storian states that this was only the beginning. So that's a breakdown of the plot. This is kind of a long movie, but I really, really liked it. The acting is superior, I thought, especially on behalf of CHARLIZE THERON. and the guy who plays Rafal, he was really great. It was very original. I mean, there of course are tropes in it, as there is in everything, but I thought it was a very original story. And one thing that I really liked was the soundtrack. It used, contemporary music, but they were sort of altered versions. And there's a particularly cool version of Toxic in the film that's really good. The costumes are fantastic. When Sophie kind of becomes evil, she gives off serious Sabrina vibes from the recent Netflix Sabrina show, which is cool. I love that show. I did not see the plot twist coming where Rihanna is actually a Rafal. I did not see that coming. The cinematography is gorgeous throughout the whole film. So I really, really enjoyed it. It was kind of like a sort of layman's kind of Harry Potter, if that makes any sense. Like, it's very evocative of, you know, Harry Potter and the whole Hogwarts thing. But like, I always found those films hard to follow. And that's, not a knock on the films. It's that I'm kind of a dunderhead. And this was easier for me to follow. So I kind of liked it better. And I'm hoping they do make a second film. There are more books in the series, so I'm hoping that there's another movie in this series, because I thought it was very, very entertaining and, moving ultimately. And that's, more than I can say for a lot of movies that come out these days. There are a lot of movies that I enjoy, but few movies, and for that matter, TV shows, actually move me these days. And this one, I found it to be quite moving. So, it's on Netflix, and I think you should check it out. For now, I'm going to get out of here. I'll be back with more movie reviews soon. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.